What's up, everybody? So I just finished watching episode 2 of Convicting a Murderer on Daily Wire Plus. I gotta say, if people out there think Making a Murderer made Stephen Avery out to be the good guy, this episode of Convicting a Murderer went completely the opposite direction, which is to be expected. That is the whole point of Convicting a Murderer. Now, the episode starts out with them talking about the killing of the cat. Now, was absolutely expected to be a fairly big part of this. Talks about the killing of the cat. Now, I've said this before. If Stephen Avery was in prison to this day for killing the cat, and he should be. Now, I am a giant animal supporter. I have a 15-year-old dog that's over there, right there, that's still asleep. It's pretty early in the morning. I'm probably going to wake her up doing this video. You've probably seen her on my Instagram. But we're not here to talk about my dog. I could talk about my dog all day long. I'm a giant animal supporter. If Stephen Avery was in prison to this day for killing the cat, I say absolutely good. He deserves it. Let him rot. But he's not. He's not in prison for the killing of the cat. Even though he should be. I would fully support life in prison for animal cruelty. I would get behind that 100%. But that said, I'm not an NFL guy. I don't watch football. Michael Vick was convicted of animal cruelty. He led like a dog fighting ring, and he was allowed to play in the NFL again, which is absolutely disgusting. He should also still be sitting in prison for what he did to those dogs, to those animals. Stephen Avery's brother Earl accuses Stephen of harming Stephen's dog. They talk about the woman that Stephen Avery ran off the road. Stephen Avery claims he did it because she was spreading rumors about him. They air clips of his supporters claiming why he did that, and the cat. They interview 2 Avery supporters. They talk about how and why they got involved with the case. They talk about how Making a Murderer edited Sandra Morris's interview, and then Convicting a Murderer airs more parts of it, but it doesn't really, the parts that they did air that were not included in Making a Murderer, I don't feel they really changed the dynamic of that particular situation, at least not at this point in time in the episode. I don't think it changed anything. It didn't change my opinion on the situation with Sandra Morris based on the few extra clips that Convicting a Murderer aired at this point in time in the episode. They mention that Sandra was married to a deputy in the area. Sandra talks about Stephen Avery running her off the road. Now, these are all old interviews from the deposition that she did. Got out of his car with a rifle and made her get into his car. Thomas Fassbender appears for the first time. I don't think he was in episode 1. I don't remember seeing him in episode 1, but he only appears for like a split second here. I'm going to assume that he's going to be in more episodes moving forward. Really looking forward to see what he says about everything. Candace Owens talks about how Making a Murderer formed their own narrative about the Sandra Morris incident, which is also what Convicting a Murderer is doing. Truthful or not truthful, doesn't matter what side you believe, Convicting a Murderer is still forming a narrative, still forming their narrative. I don't think, and I don't mean this as a negative, I mean, it's going to sound negative, but I don't think they know what narrative means. It doesn't matter what you're making or what you're doing, you are telling your narrative. This is Convicting a Murderer's narrative on the situation. Truthful, not truthful, doesn't matter. It's still a narrative on the situation. They mention the original 1985 wrongful conviction. They talk about the letters sent between Stephen and Lori. Earl Avery talked about how Stephen asked him to help out with his kids while Stephen was in prison for the first time. He also talks about while Stephen was in prison that he asked Earl to take care of his wife, and that Stephen wanted to listen while they had those relations. Stated that Lori couldn't be reached for comment. Candy talks about how Stephen told her that while in prison, they share wives in this family. Anjanette Levy talks about the cards that Avery sent his kids, said that they stated, "When I get out, I'm gonna kill mommy." Now that, there's no excuse. There is no excuse for that. nothing. Whether he's upset with his wife, you don't write those things, and you especially don't write those things in cards you're sending to your kids. If you're gonna be crazy and write those things, write it down on paper and have proof of them and send them to your wife. Don't send them to your kids for your wife. He states he did it because his kids couldn't read and his wife was gonna read the cards anyway. I mean, they're going to end up reading them at some point in time. That's just something you do not do. Man, it's just that's crazy. I mean, I knew about this before, so it's not like a giant shock or anything, but that's something that you absolutely don't do. He's doing it probably because he's frustrated that he's in prison, he's wrongfully convicted, there's nothing he can do, he can't get out, but that's still not an excuse to send those types of things to anybody, let alone your children. They air a portion of a prison interview between Anjanette Levy and Stephen Avery. They state his kids didn't want to go visit him in prison. Earl states that Stephen was mean to Lori's son Jason and allegedly punched him and knocked out his teeth. They then talk about the 2003 release. Candace Owens states that Avery had a well-established history of abusing women, and his supporters still make excuses for him. And then, of course, they air clips of, I think it was the Foul Play group, some group of Stephen Avery's supporters making excuses for him. Then they air an interview with Jody talking to police, which was originally from October 2006. So like I said, I always give both sides of the situation. I'm gonna cover exactly what Convicting a Murderer goes over. I read Ken Kratz's book and I did the exact same thing. It doesn't matter what I believe. I'm covering the content that is being put out there, and then I'm gonna give my own commentary on certain things, whether I agree or disagree or whatever the case may be. This episode absolutely did the exact opposite, but like I said at the beginning, is the point of what Making a Murderer did. They're going to want to make Stephen Avery out to be the absolute worst person he could possibly be. And it did an excellent job of portraying Stephen Avery in that negative light, talking about all the horrible things that he did growing up over the years and continued to do as an adult, continued to do while he was in prison the first time, wrongfully convicted. Just an absolutely insane list of things that I won't even attempt to make an excuse for. I can say why I think he did it, but that's not me making an excuse for it, because he still shouldn't have did it. None of those things that he was involved with, that he did, that they stated he did in this episode, should he have done. But nobody is saying Stephen Avery is an angel. Like I said at the start, if he was in prison for killing the cat, good. He should still be there. He should sit there and rot. But that's not why he's there. That's not why me or other people or even the people making Convicting a Murderer are making this video. I assume that's not why they're making this documentary anyway. They want to prove that Stephen Avery killed Teresa Halbach. And they're doing that by laying a backstory, by stating how horrible of a person he was. I get that. I get that fully. These list of things don't mean Stephen Avery brutally murdered and assaulted Teresa Halbach in October of 2005. We have yet to get to any of the facts that they are stating they have that are new. They've stated a few times, I did a video about it, that they have new facts on the case. Is that possible? Yes. Is it likely? No. It would have been in one of Kathleen Zellner's filings. And if it wasn't, you don't think if the filmmakers found something out, they would have gave it to the Wisconsin legal team that is going against Stephen Avery, or that went against Stephen Avery, to be like, look, there's absolute 100% proof that you can shut up all of Stephen Avery's supporters, you can shut up Kathleen Zellner, you can stop all of this from happening if you just show this. What did you think of episode 2 of Convicting a Murderer? I'm going to watch episode 3 here soon, and I'll definitely be back with another video. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments below. I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you again soon.